you about me and then dig into the meat and potatoes and leave some time for questioning. So at any time, if you are online, you can type your questions into the chat area, or you can unmute yourself, and we'll have time for question and answer in the middle, and then I'll also have time and leave time at the end as well. So my name is Felicia Hatcher. For 7 years, I was known as the chief popsicle of a gourmet popsicle manufacturing company. I'm an author, I'm an entrepreneur, and I like to claim that I'm a badass mom and wife. And, a little bit about myself. I'm a White House award-winning entrepreneur twice. So in 2011, as the one of the top 100 entrepreneurs under the age of 30, and then last year in 2014 as a White House champion of change for STEM access and diversity. So to be there once was a huge surprise. To be honored there twice, I'm like head over heels excited about that honor. But for the most part, I spend my days as a motivational speaker and author. I run a technology entrepreneurship, startup and coding school here in Miami, as well as put on a really cool technology conference. And I create cool books, products, and courses to help startups, creatives, and broke entrepreneurs follow your most epic dream. Through Feverish, that I ran for 7 years until selling it this year. Really cool concept that we created with a gourmet popsicle company, manufacturing private label, but then also working and being able to attract some really big name clients that use our gourmet popsicles as promotional items. So really unique niche inside that business. Forever 21, Cadillac, you name it. People had a lot of fun with popsicles and kind of the nostalgia, but then the grown-up feel of it, especially with our alcohol pop. So that's about Feverish. And one of the main reasons I wanted to share that with you, because over 7 years of building that company, not having any money when I first started, not having any experience, no culinary experience whatsoever, except for, I give a lot of credit to being able to work at McDonald's when I was 16 as pretty much all my culinary experience before jumping into an industry that I knew nothing about. Never thought I would ever be in a food business, let alone run my own food business. So we had a lot of success, but then I also had a lot of stress and a lot of times where I doubted myself. And I tell people that all the time and they don't believe me because they're like, you're always smiling. I'm like, yeah, but running a business is very hard work coupled with everything else. And you have to constantly stay positive, not only for yourself and your family, but really for the morale of your staff, your employees, and your clients, and everyone else that depends on you. So I'm going to share some information with you and resources with you of how I've been able to jump over those hurdles every time they've come, and they've come quite a bit, and I'm still a work in progress. Like everyone is still a work in progress. I hope I don't think no one can actually tell you that they've 100% conquered the negative self-thought. Because I don't believe that's possible, but there's ways to minimize that and ways to stay on track and stay focused. So I pretty much sum up negative self-taught as having a lot to do with the imposter syndrome. And so you feel like you've accomplished so much, but you really feel at the end of the day, especially when you're alone by yourself or in your head, and cannot get rid of the head junk, that you have absolutely accomplished nothing. And that is really why and what is rooted in your negative self-thought. So according to good old Wikipedia, the imposter syndrome is defined as the inability to internalize your success, a psychological phenomenon in which people are unable to internalize their accomplishments. So despite external evidence of your competency, those with the syndrome remain convinced that they are frauds, that they did not deserve the success that they have achieved. Proof of success is diminished as luck, timing, or as a result of deceiving others into thinking that you are more intelligent and confident than you actually believe yourself to be. Notably, and this is really important and really why I'm focusing on this through this negative self-thought, is notably imposter syndrome is particularly high and particularly common among high achieving women. That's me, that's you, that's everyone that's on this call. And I pretty much sum it up as mostly it's because we have this bullshit picture in our heads of how things are supposed to be stacked up before we can actually own our accomplishments. And I mean, really, truly own our accomplishments with the confidence of like Kanye West. And we all know who he is and how crazy he can be. But just being unapologetic about who we are and what we stand for and really standing in our truth. And you can do that without making other people feel small. But we should not be minimizing ourselves at all to make other people feel big. And that's why I like to say, have the confidence of Kanye West. So I can tell you this, I can tell you about imposter syndrome, I can tell you about negative self-thought. And that's because I've been through that journey more times than I could ever count on my hands and toes, fingers and toes, right? So I've written books. All my books have, well, my two major books have major publishing deals. I'm one of the pioneers of the gourmet popsicle industry. Like I said before, that has been able to call Google, Airbnb, Forever 21, Playboy, Whole Foods as clients. I've spoken around the globe to students, executives, and world leaders. I've been featured on boatloads of major news outlets. I've raised major venture capitalist funding. I've built and executed huge branding campaigns for the NBA, the Sony, and Nintendo. I've built a tech organization that has mentored some students that, despite all their obstacles, I absolutely know they're going to change the world and astonish the world. But there are times along this journey where I absolutely feel like an imposter. And that's mostly because I know everyone on this call can relate. Every single day, we rev ourselves up like car engines in a race with motivational quotes, manifestos, daily affirmations. I have in my house, I have daily affirmations everywhere in my mirror, in my bathroom, to things that I've bought at the store, Pure Imports and Home Goods and all that stuff that have all these phenomenal motivational quotes as a constant reminder to myself to keep going, keep pushing. You're doing fantastic work. You're impacting lives, all these things. And you get to a point where you have to stop and say, why do I need all these motivational quotes around my house? Why do I constantly need, daily affirmations to pop up on my phone throughout the day? It's because living and life can get crazy, and if you don't remind yourself how great you are every single day, you're constantly combating everything around the world that is telling you that you're not, telling you that you're imperfect, telling you that you're not working hard enough, that you're not balancing enough, that you're not juggling enough, that you're not doing enough for your customers, you're not doing enough for your partner, your significant other, you're not doing enough for your children. And the thing is, you are. But when you're alone, you feel like you're a fake. You feel like every day you have to put on this armor that says, I'm stronger than how I feel, and that I'm not allowed to live in whatever I'm going through at that moment. And you should, and you have to. The thing that you really need to think about is, even with the education and your years of experience, lofty job titles, businesses with awesome cash flow, we still find ourselves in situations where we feel very small. Like, even though you just killed it at that meeting or that conference and that presentation or that call with your clients, you feel like soon people will find that you just don't know what the hell you're doing, but you absolutely do. And the reason you feel like that is because, like I said before, society has a way of telling you and showing you that you are not anything. You're not worth anything, that you're small, because so many people benefit from the fact that you don't feel empowered. You think of how many, if you go on social media, you go on your Facebook account right now, how many motivational speakers and coaches and products and all these things are being bombarded with you every day. If you had high self-thought and you felt empowered, you're putting them out of business. So you definitely have to think about it that way. Like, especially as women, if we really truly owned our power, we would be unstoppable. And I think throughout my entire life, I didn't really understand what that meant until my daughter was born. My daughter was born premature. She weighed 1.4 pounds when she was born. And, I remember the neonatologist coming into into my hospital room after I went into labor 3.5 months early, and telling me that my husband and I needed to go into the the NICU as much as possible between that night and the next night because they didn't think she was actually going to make it past 1 or 2 nights. And crying my eyes out, frantic, freaking out like crazy. And there's this. My mom's from Jamaica, so there's this little Jamaican nurse that walked by and was like, Is that a girl?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, she's gonna be fine. She's gonna be just fine." And she kept going, and I'm like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" I'm sitting in front of an incubator. There's bells and whistles and beeping going off. There's a million and one wires going through my daughter. She's small as the size of my hand. I can't touch her. I can't do anything. All I can do is like look at her and pray. And the neonatologist told me that she's not going to make it. And you're telling me as you quickly run by that she's going to be just fine once you found out that she was a girl. And the next day she walked by, she asked me the same exact question. And she proceeded to walk past again. And I'm like, "No, you need to stop and come back here and tell me why you think she's going to be okay." And she said she had been a NICU nurse for over 20 years. And what she knows is girls perform so much better when they're born early than boys do. And at the time, she said specifically African American girls, but it was African American girls, then Caucasian girls, then I believe African American boys, and then Caucasian boys. And she was like, women, girls that are born, you know, when they are literally, and I had to think about it, and it took me a week to really digest exactly what she was saying. So, and what she said, and what I want to share with you is, as women, when we were literally the smallest person on this earth, when literally every single card is stacked against us, when we are not supposed to survive, there is something that is in us that we are born with, right? That is innate to us, that we are built to survive through the roughest and toughest situations when we first enter this world. And somewhere along the line, we get all of that power, all that strength that we're born with as women gets beaten out of us. And so, and there's so many variables, so many of us come from so many different situations. But what I really want you to do is kind of remember that story, that there's something in you that allows you to keep going throughout all the good, the bad, the ugly. And the most important thing to remember is that you are not alone in this process, right? Every single person on this earth goes through some crazy stuff all the time. And so what happens is, because we don't really understand how to internalize the good that has come to us, we only focus on the bad. And we only focus on the fact that our business isn't doing as well as we want it to do, or that client is driving us absolutely crazy. And because we only focus on those things, we don't ever stand in our strength. And we don't also realize that other people are going through this too. And once you realize that this is not, the world is not set up against you, and that other people are going through this, that's how you really find your strength in order to survive. And that's how you get out of the story that you keep telling yourself in your head as to why you can't accomplish X, Y, and Z. But what I really want to share with you, because we can talk all day long about negative self-thought, I really want to focus on some things that have really helped me kind of overcome those times where I'm not necessarily feeling that I can take over the world or accomplish X, Y, and Z, or be able to juggle all the things that we really have to juggle. One of the biggest things that I find a lot of people that I work with, or that even that I meet, is that we give a whole lot of credit to luck. You've worked your ass off. Every single thing that you've done leading up to this point, every late night, every proposal, every pitch, all the no's, and even every yes, every sacrifice, every struggle, every epic failure, and every success has led to this very moment, to that moment where you are sitting in that meeting, things are going well, but in your mind, you're thinking, they're not going to pick me. They're not going to pick my company. I'm not going to get that promotion. That moment when you've done everything right, you sacrifice every single thing in order to get the reward, and you deserve the reward, but that negative thought starts creeping in. And what I want you to start doing is not chalking it up to luck, because you did everything right in order to be there. It's not luck. You deserve this opportunity. You deserve to be in the room. You deserve a seat at the table. Quite frankly, you deserve the opportunity, and you should be building your own tables. And you should be unapologetic about it. Absolutely unapologetic about it. So you're not selling snake oil. You are creating a company, working on a project, and starting a movement that is going to have a huge impact on the world. And it takes a lot of time. And that's the other thing that I realize for a lot of people is because society tells us that, especially if you look at the Entrepreneur magazine, the Inc. magazine, OWN, all these great glossy publications, either the physical publication or looking online and getting all this motivation, they always gloss over the story, right? So it's like, hey, you know, Sarah, who started Spank, she started this company. She had this idea. She went to like one or two people. They turned her down. Then she found that third guy who was really interested in what she's doing. And then all of a sudden, she has this worldwide company where every woman is uncomfortable as all get out wearing her Spanx, but it makes us look good. And she's a multimillionaire now, right? And they don't really focus on the time or the dark days that she's had, that Sarah had, right? Those days when her bank account went negative $1,000 and she had to make payroll the next day. Or, you know, she lost that big client or that manufacturer that she thought she had. And she took that purchase order and she, you know, she was able to get a loan against it. And the manufacturer tanked on her. And she had this order that she had to fulfill within 2 weeks and couldn't find another manufacturer. Where are those stories? Because those are the things that we go through that eat us up, that allow us to, that don't allow us to be productive and actually to produce and to add value to every single person that we work with. So you need those stories. I call those failure stories because that's where you're really empowered, not so much in the oh my God, they made it, but no, this is how they were actually able to get out of the BS and how they were able to move forward. And those dark days when you don't ever feel like getting out of the bed. You know, if you need to take those days, you need to take those days. And you need to be unapologetic about having to take those days or those weeks or those months. You have to, you know, because there's just so much going on. And what I realized, especially when I was dealing with my investors for 2 years, is that if I don't set up lines that I will not cross, people will beat me up every single day. And they will use me and they will abuse me, not necessarily because they have ill intentions, but the more I say it's okay when they ask me, is there a problem? Or I say, I can do this when I know I really can't and I'm at capacity. That's when the negative self-thought creeps in. That's when the doubt creeps in. That's when the depression creeps in. That's when, you know, holding up the integrity of your brand and the product that you put out, when that starts to falter because you're taking on way more than you can and you're not producing the good work. And when you know yourself, you're not producing the good work, that's when all that other stuff starts to fall and to crumble, you know, and you really have to be careful about that. The other thing that I think has been really important for me is creating an epic shit list. I know Violet's probably going to kill me of how much I'm cursing, but sometimes it's a little important. So it's all about, you know, the attention that you're giving to the intention of the things that you do. And sometimes you just need a trip down good old memory lane. And I have a list on my website. If you go to FeliciaHatcher.com and you click on the free download section, you'll be able to get this epic shit list that I really would like every single one of the people on this call to fill out. And it's literally a list that you include every and anything you've ever accomplished in your life. So that little league trophy, that gymnastics trophy, that positive feedback from one of your old bosses, that positive feedback from your clients or a customer or a family, friend, or even a stranger. Again, you can get the template on my website, but you really need to collect all of your epicness and visit it every single time you feel like negative self-thought is creeping in. Because really, we all value external validation from one point or the other. It's not a great thing that we should do, and that's one part of the problem. But two, it's also something that can help you because so many of us have accomplished so many things. And again, if I go back to what I was talking about before, we just don't know how to internalize what we've been able to accomplish. And that in lies where the negative thought starts to creep in. So if you can capture all of those things, big or small, it really doesn't matter, but you have to. I remember in the early days of Feverish Pops, wanting and getting ready, very close to closing down our warehouse at the time because like things just weren't adding up. Cash flow wasn't right. I was super depressed. I didn't think things were supposed to be like that. I really swore that all I had to do was open up this company, make some great pops, get a few key clients in, and total world domination was going to happen. And I remember getting a phone call from from a guy. His name's Charles. At the time, I didn't know who he was, but he called and was asking if we were still if we were still open. And it was almost 5 o'clock, and it was getting ready to close up for the day. And I'm like, if you come within like the next 15-20 minutes, I'll wait around for you. And so he was like, yeah, I'm getting discharged from the hospital, and I really want to come by. And I'm like, what kind of hospital are you getting discharged from? And so first I thought someone was kind of pranking me. Then I was a little freaked out. I'm like, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll wait around for you. And the guy comes, he drives up, he gets out of the car. He's with his wife and his sister. And he has like the legit like armband on. So he really just got out the hospital. And he said to me, I was at the hospital getting a heart transplant, and I believe it was a lung transplant. And while I was there, there was a segment that came on with you on TV, and I absolutely loved your energy. And I told myself, if I made it out of this alive, you would be my first stop. And in my mind, I'm just like, if I just went through a heart transplant and a lung transplant, like, I don't know if ice cream would have been my first stop. And he laughed, but he was just like, no, he was like, what you guys have been able to accomplish and your energy on TV, something just told me I had to meet you if I made it out of here alive. And excuse me, that story has stuck with me forever. It's been probably about 6 years that I met Charles and his sister Brenda, who I'm glad to still be Facebook friends with. But I was going through so much at that time. And I was doubting everything, including the decision to even start that darn company at the time. And it took someone who was literally on their deathbed saying, I see what you're doing, and what you're doing is really special. And you don't necessarily see it, but you're impacting people that you may or may not ever meet. And so for me, that's why it had been so important to put this epic shit list together and really share it with everyone, because you need those reminders when life has punched you in the gut and you don't know how to keep going. And I think the universe, and I don't know what everyone's like religious and spiritual belief is, but when we're on the right path of doing what we're supposed to do, I strongly from the bottom of my heart believe that God puts people and puts situations in our life to say, you just need to keep going. Because we may not be listening to those messages, no matter what your spirituality or your religious belief is, but those messages happen. And sometimes we're open enough to receive it, but a lot of times we're not, because we're crowding our head and our heart so much with the doubt that we have the skills or the people around us to be able to make those things happen. So download it, use it. I find it best to use or even create your own list of accomplishments, your epicness, your epic shit, when you are actually having a fantastic day. So when you are having a great day, if you're in Florida, the weather is freaking amazing right now. Like I was telling my husband, I'm like, I'm looking for any and every reason to be outside. Any and every reason to be outside. Like, I don't want to work in the house. I don't want to work in the office. I want to work outside because the weather is so great. So use a day like this when you're having a great day. Everything is aligned and everything's going right, and your ebb and flow and everything is going cool, to actually sit down and write down your list of accomplishments, because it's a much easier process to write when you're happy and you're feeling good than when negative thought has started to creep in and you can't easily recall all the things that make you a badass, right? So the other thing that I want you to do is stay in your own lane. what I've found is when I am doing things that are not what I'm supposed to be doing, they're not on my path of alignment, that is again where I really start doubting myself and negative thought starts creeping in, is when you're not doing things that you're supposed to be doing. And we all know that. We've all been in that situation. And that is really the difference between, I think, being hustling and being a CEO, right? So this was something that quite a few years ago, one of my mentors told me. She's like, Felicia, you need to stop hustling and become a CEO. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, hustling is all I know, like hustle hard, get things done, get clients any way that you possibly can, do the work, grind, grind, grind. And she said, no, there's hustling and there's taking any and everything that your clients throw at you. And then there's being a CEO and getting out of the kitchen and getting out of the production process and getting out of the things that you don't really need to do, that you can easily outsource, when you think about the opportunity cost, it's much cheaper for you to hire somebody else to do that than to you to focus your time and do that. And you really need to put the CEO hat on and focus on the higher level tasks that, one, create a vision and create a scalability plan for what you're doing. But more importantly, your job is to bring the money in and to build the relationships and the bigger relationships so that your company can be sustainable. And that became the difference between hustling and being a CEO. Someone that's hustling will take a client that is way below what their asking price is just to bring the money in. Being a CEO is, these are our prices, and actually we're trying to fire some of our customers that really don't fit in line with our immutable laws for our business, or the mission of our business, or just the culture of our business. And we're really trying to only service 5 key clients instead of serving 500 really crappy clients. And so what I realized is that is all about staying in your own lane. And so I find times that I feel most intimidated, and when negative thought starts creeping in, and when I start to kind of feel small in situations, is when I'm venturing into lanes that are not my own. I'm not saying don't take the risk and stop trying. What I'm saying is, but you have to realize that you are extremely good at certain things. But there are times that imposter syndrome, when you truly are being greedy and really being an greedy imposter, right? And instead of being honest and being a resource, you end up taking on business and taking on clients that aren't for you and aren't for your company. If you don't know what I'm talking about, think of it this way. If you don't know something and you take that opportunity anyways and think that you can just Google it and it will save you, say you don't know, but you know someone who does, right? So we've all done it. We've all been on conference calls with our clients, and we've all, they've asked us something that we don't really know about, or they ask us to do something that we're just like, I don't know what that is. But you'll quickly Google it so that you can answer that question or say, yeah, I can do that business for you. That's when you're being greedy, and that's when you're not staying in your own lane. And so it becomes much easier for you as a company, when the other part is your sanity, but then more importantly, just being a resource to other people. And again, building your tribe to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question, or we can't do that, or I don't know how to do that, but I can find you somebody who can do that. Because my motto has always been, the pie is big enough for everyone to get a slice. So staying in your own lane is another way that you can really kind of limit the negative self-thought. The other thing is curse, right? I've done it quite a few times. I'm kind of known to be a motivational potty mouth, and I'm happy to accept that. And I think sometimes the only way to motivate yourself to really get out of a rut, to really unleash your badassery, is to, well, put a little stank on it, right? Because you got this. I mean, you really freaking got this. And a friend of mine, Cassandra Roche with Inspire Many, I remember there was one day I was just having the worst day ever. I mean, everything that could literally go wrong was going wrong. And she wrote, we had to get off the phone. I was complaining a lot. And she just texted me and she said, Felicia, you got this. And I just stared at what she said because it's just a few simple words. And she was like, you got this. And so that's what I want to tell each and every one of you. When you feel like you are in a situation and you're doubting yourself and you're doubting your abilities, just remember that you got this. And if you need to go into the bathroom, if you need to curse and say I'm epic and do those motivational mantras and things like that, you do what you have to do. But sometimes I find that it really helps. The other thing that I want you to think about, as I mentioned, Cassandra and some other friends, is identify your "are you kidding me" friends, right? Whether you have one, whether it's your mom or your dad, your sister or your brother, that friend that will allow you to, those friends that allow you to vent, but then they immediately say, "Are you kidding me? Do you know how much you've accomplished?" Aside from my husband, who has been great at that, my two good friends, like I mentioned before, Cassandra Roche and another friend of mine who I actually started my first business with in college, James Taylor. Those are the people that are in my corner that provide that dose of reality. And so I really challenge you after you get off this call to say, who are my friends that when I talk to, they allow me to vent? So finding friends that do allow you to vent, because you don't want to have all that bottled in, that all that stress, all that self-doubt. You want to have friends that will allow you really quick to kind of cry on the shoulder, but then say, you know what, you really got this. Like, you've accomplished X, Y, and Z. There's no reason you should be doubting yourself. It's great to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Because that's where all the magic happens. But you kind of need those reminders from some people that you really truly trust that will say, you got this, and will allow you to keep going. So the last thing I kind of want to talk about before I go over some other stuff and open it up to any questions is, guys, just remember, you're not selling snake oil. You're creating a company. You're working on a cool project. You're starting a movement that's going to have a huge impact on the world, and it takes time. Sometimes it takes a lot of time. There are no overnight success. Everyone that you see that's working, that's hard, that things are paying off. They've been working on it and they've been sacrificing more sometimes than you ever know. The flip side of that is I always tell people to celebrate every single victory that comes across, right? Every success, every victory, because only you and only you really truly knows what you sacrifice and how hard it is to accomplish the things that you've been able to accomplish. And so the point is, you don't know all the answers. But what you know is your stuff. So you need to stop playing small and thinking small so that others can feel big. Because if everyone was really more honest about the process, you will see that we have all jumped off the mountain and we're building a plane and trying to fly it all at the same time. You're not an imposter. You're not thinking small. You really need to be thinking big, and just understand that you should not be feeling like a fake. You should not be feeling like a failure. It takes time, and what you're really doing is you're grinding and you're working and you're grinding harder than ever before, and it's going to pay off. But the biggest thing that stands in most people's way is literally yourself. And so once you can kind of get out of your own way, do some of the things that I told you about to kind of rev yourself back up, then that's when you're really going to see things change and really see things take off. And so what I realized is that life is all about alignment, right? So if you're in the webinar, you'll see head, heart, and hustle, and where they really overlap. And that overlap is you essentially on your road to alignment. And what I realized a long time ago, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a few companies, plus I work on a lot of projects. I have a 2-year-old daughter that was a preemie. So for the first year, I practically lived in hospitals, and most people don't know that. And I have a really cool husband, and we own our business together along with another partner. And all of that takes a lot of hard work. And I worked for some really amazing companies. And when I either got fired or left those companies and got laid off, quite a few of my friends and family have told me that I was an idiot to leave those stable jobs and those stable companies and that great insurance and benefits and the great pay and all those things to really be able to follow what I wanted to do, and really be able to chart my own course better than I could working for anybody else. And one of the biggest things that I realize is one, Lulu says it best, right? Balance is bullshit. And so I've never subscribed to work-life balance. I don't think it exists. And what I realize is that if I am truly doing every single thing that I want to do, and I pick those 2 to 3 things that are most important to me, extremely important, right? Pick the 2 to 3 things that are most important to me, that have a high priority on my list, then I don't need work-life balance because I am in my alignment. And when you're in your alignment, you shouldn't feel off kiltered or off balance, or the ebb and flow of your life is not right. But when you're doing things that you're not supposed to be doing, right? When you're saying yes too many times when you really should be saying no, that's when you start to feel those stress headaches, right? Or you feel clouded and convoluted in your head, and you feel that kind of like that pain starts to creep up in the back of your neck and down your spine, and you get that uneasiness in your stomach, and really all the head junk starts to settle in. That's because you're not doing things that are on your path to alignment. And one of the biggest things and the hardest thing for people to do is cut things out. And for me, it happened because it had to happen, right? When I had my daughter and I was literally in bed rest and in the hospital every single night because she was in the NICU and in the hospital for 4 months, I had to set those lines that I would not cross with people. I had to start taking that time off. I remember telling Violet that I'm like, I don't work on Mondays. And she was just like, what? And I think she said, I don't work on Fridays. And I was like, the thing about not working on Mondays, and I've been good at it and I've been bad at it, but for the most part, I'm more good at it, is that Monday is just crazy for everybody, right? It's that uneasiness. It's, I don't really want to be here. I wish my weekend was a little bit longer. And I realized that I would subscribe to everybody else's crazy on Monday and it would make me crazy. And I realized the other thing that I realized is that most people's emergencies on Mondays were not my emergency. And if it was something that they needed, I could easily respond to that email and they could get whatever they needed on Tuesday. The other thing, just for the nature of our business, Monday was our slowest time for business. And so that was the other reason it just worked really well for me. So I work really hard Tuesday through Saturday. Sundays are dedicated family days. And I had to really set that line that I will not cross. Another thing that really stuck out to me was I listened to two interviews that were really interesting. My brother's a comedian and he absolutely loves Dave Chappelle. So I've sat and watched a lot of interviews and stuff with Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle said when he first started in comedy, I think when he first moved from Ohio to LA, his dad told him that he needed to set a line that he would not cross. Meaning, set a line that he would not cross and then set his price for success. And he said at any time in Hollywood, if what you're going after gets more expensive than the price that you're willing to pay, you know that it's time to get out. And so when you are starting your business, you're running your business, you're scaling your business, you're trying to juggle everything, you really need to set the price, right? And what compromises you are willing to and not willing to make. And I think too often we focus so much time on putting a business plan together that we don't really put a kind of like a sanity plan and a life plan together of how this business is going to impact who we are and what we do and our family, and know that if it ever gets expensive to whatever dollar amount that you've made, if it ever gets expensive and you have to cross that line or come to that line, that you are willing to not cross that line in order to have what you want and do the things that you want. That's something that's extremely important. The other thing that if you're a fan of Iconoclast by Sundance, they do those really cool epic like mashups. And one of my favorite ones is Dave Chappelle and Maya Angelou. And love Maya Angelou, right? And he did this interview with Maya Angelou. They actually interviewed each other, and this was like right after he left Comedy Central and all this stuff. So you could tell he was like doing this kind of internal battle of really figuring out what his life was going to look like after this. And she told him, because he was just talking about how brutal the world had kind of been on him for walking away. And he kind of mentioned why he walked away, but, we still all haven't heard the full story. And she pretty much said to him, if you don't pick it up and don't put it down. And that has always stuck with me. So she said, if you pick it up when everyone is telling you that you're great and you're fantastic and you're the funniest man on earth, and when she said when you pick it up, meaning like you internalize that, and that kind of goes to the ego and goes to the head. If you pick it up when all those people say it and it becomes a part of your ego, you also have to pick it up when they say you're worthless and you're nothing and you're a failure and you're not going to make it and you're washed up. Or, if you talk about women in business that, you're a bitch and you're too aggressive and you're a failure, you're not going to make it, and you've destroyed your family, and all those different things. So don't pick it up and don't put it down. So she said that when people say things to you, you just kind of say, you accept it, but you don't have to own it. Because if you own it when they say the good, you also have to own it when they say the bad. And I think that really contributes to the negative self-thought that a lot of us deal with as women and as entrepreneurs. The last thing that I want to share with you before I open it up to any questions that we have is one of the biggest things that I realize is change the story that you're telling yourself. Change the story that's going around in your head, because that's what becomes, right? So one of the most powerful sentences that you can say is I am, and complete whatever comes after that, right? So I am, successful. I am a hard worker. If so many of us feel that I am not a good accountant, or I am not strong enough to get over this hurdle. I am not the right person to do this presentation, although this company is mine and no one knows it better than I do. Excuse me. So literally understanding the story that you keep telling yourself is the reason why you cannot move forward. The story that you keep telling yourself is the reason why you cannot move forward. So the minute that you can change the story that you're telling yourself, you can change the course of who you are, what you're trying to do, and what you're trying to accomplish. One of the funniest memes that I've seen is that you are not a tree, right? So at any time you can get up and you can move. You are not a tree. At any time you can get up and you can move. Excuse me, guys. So like I said before, if you go on the website, you can download on my website the free stuff, the epic shit list, plus a ton of other stuff that's on there. The challenge that I have for each and every one of you before I close out and open it up to question is, guys, just tackle one thing every single day that scares the hell out of you, because the world does not benefit from you hiding your badassery. So you can unmute yourselves if you have any questions in the webinar or on the phone call. I'm all ears for the next few minutes to answer any of your questions that you have. Anyone with any questions? All right, guys. So I guess the last thing I wanted to leave you with, Violet, thank you so much, and Femfessionals, for allowing me to close out an epic 6 weeks. And I have a course on my website called How to Become an Epic Expert. It goes over this one, defining your epicness, prospecting strategies, perfecting your messaging, creating profitable products, info products, and going over your speaker fees, partnership, and design thinking for those that are either authors, entrepreneurs, or speakers that essentially want to take what you're doing to the next level, how to package it, but then also how to demand top honorariums, and speaking fees, and creating info products that you can essentially own your badassery with. So if there's no more questions, I thank you guys
Well,
so much.
excuse me.
Yes.
Hi. I think I managed to unmute the line, but I was going to say
Okay.
people might not be asking anything because did they know how to unmute the line? So I hit *6 and it unmuted the
Okay.
line. So
Sorry, guys.
I didn't know if they were. Everybody was on mute, so they couldn't unmute.
Okay, guys, if you want to unmute, press *6.
I think I finally figured out how to unmute.
There we go. Cool. I think that might have been what the problem was. Now we're gonna have to. Actually, I just wanted to say thank you because this is this is a reinforcement of what I wanted to know. My name's Kathy Carrillo, and I'm here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm getting ready to go for a conference with the company I work with, and there's so much of this information that we share as far as just changing your mindset and how you're looking at yourself and how you're carrying yourself and really, I love that, finding your epicness and your epic shit list. I really love that because it's something that I think, especially us as women, we tend to forget where I was raised to be very humble. I was told that, we need to be the doormat and just we can't accept a compliment, but it's better to embrace all of that and use that to strengthen us and give us the confidence that we need so that when we are building these businesses that we know are important and have value, that we're not just valuing the business, we're valuing ourselves within that business and that industry and what we're able to contribute. So that was just a great reminder and reinforcement to me. So thank you.
No problem, Kathy. Thank you.
This is Sharon Hines. I'm in South Carolina. Hi. I agree also about making that list. I'm really into journaling, and so I can see a lot of good applications for putting that list into your journaling efforts. But my question actually was if you could explain a little bit more about the Head, Heart, Hustle model. It's very similar to a model I've seen that's skills, passion, and economics, but I think maybe yours has a little bit different twist.
Okay, absolutely. So Head, Heart, and Hustle, like I said before, it's all about being able to align those three things. So going from the very beginning, one of the biggest things that you need to do is really start subtracting from your life, right? So looking at the things that when you do those things, they really cause you the most pain or the most stress. In order to really be able to kind of have some clarity and some confidence in what you're doing and how you're able to move forward. So like I said, what I did was, especially, the first year of my daughter, and going through all that stuff and still trying to run a business and keep a business afloat and being in the hospital almost every single day, was look at the things and the people that did not necessarily need to be a part of my life anymore. But then also setting that line of saying, I will not put anything before my daughter. So if I had a meeting that I needed to go to, or I needed to make an appointment with my daughter, I'm always going to choose the appointment with my daughter over the meeting. And so that sounds very easy, but when you're when you're a person that is juggling a lot of things and you're trying to compartmentalize every single thing that you're doing and schedule every single thing, sometimes we compromise things that we shouldn't compromise because we're trying to get every single thing done. So once I said that, you know what, nothing is going to become for my daughter, I realized that I could always reschedule that meeting. That face-to-face meeting could always be a Skype conversation or a telephone conversation. That conference, I don't necessarily need to go to. If they're periscoping it, I can still, or live streaming it, I can still make some of those things happen. And that way I personally wasn't driving myself crazy in order to make those things happen. So one, it's subtracting so that you have the clarity in your head to, again, go from hustler to CEO and really be able to only focus on the big picture things that are happening in your life and your business so that you can actually build strategy. Heart, and why heart is so important, is so many of us really focus on passion and potential and not necessarily focus on why we're doing the things what we're doing, and are they truly the things that we want to do. So my favorite saying about all of this is you cannot take potential, or I'm sorry, you can't take passion to the bank. They won't cash that check, right? Passion, potential, they have to produce profits. And so when you talk about what you really truly want to do, for me, I remember when I was working at the NBA, I didn't know at the time that I wanted to own a gourmet popsicle company, but I knew there were a lot of things that I didn't want to do, and working for that company and being in Minnesota as a Florida girl at the time, no knock to anybody on the call from Minnesota, but I knew that those are things that were constantly eating away at me, to the point where I would wake up in the morning every time right before I had to go to work, and I would literally have anxiety because I'm like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. But I didn't know where I wanted to be at that time. So really the best way to tackle the heart side of the equation is creating a list sometimes of the things that you don't want to do before you can actually create a list of the things that you do want to do, and what will really make your heart sing and make you excited. To be very honest, for 7 years that I ran a gourmet popsicle company, I was not a chef, right? So any of the things that food events and things like that where they wanted me to kind of speak about or do food demos, that's not me. That was my husband, but I was the face of the company. And so that was that part, especially when I was in the kitchen for the first few years, having to actually manufacture the product before we outsourced it to a contract manufacturer. It used to drive me absolutely nuts. And I was not aligned with the heart side of this equation, because we were just trying to hustle, right? And so once I realized, you know what I'm really good at and what I really need to focus on, I love marketing. I love marketing. I love branding. I love going out and selling. And that needed to become the full part and the only part of the business that I concentrated on, so that it's still aligned with my head and it's still aligned with my heart. And then the hustle part came in of course, knowing that we need to work, we need to hustle, and we need to do it smarter than a lot of us have been doing it, because it really makes us off kiltered if we're not doing the work in the right way. So I kind of went on a huge kind of spiel to answer your question. So I hope that answers. And when you do all of those things right, and most importantly, when you're very honest with yourself about what you like, and the kind of business that you're building, then you'll be on the right path. I think, for me, with the company that I built, and now the nonprofit that I run, being able to work with my husband, although that's good and crazy sometimes, and having the flexibility to be with my daughter, and have a very big focus on family, I've been able to have a lifestyle and an alignment with my head, heart, and hustle that allows me to work harder than I've ever worked for any company that I've worked for, but absolutely have the most joy, even on my craziest days, of really being and doing the work that makes my heart sing.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? We have about 3 more minutes for questions. And you can just press *6 in order to unmute your line. All right, guys, I guess that's it. I've recorded this session. I know Violet and the rest of the team are going to be putting these sessions back on femfessionals.com, I believe in the classroom section, so that you have it and that you'll be able to reference it. I thank you so much for spending the past hour with me. I hope that you were able to use some of the information that I shared with you. And again, it's all about, understanding that you got this, and reminding yourself every single day that you absolutely have this. Thank you guys, and have a great day.